Indeed, they are. And Clarissa, if you could stay with us, we're bringing in Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Sanjay, I know you have some questions for Clarissa.
Yeah, Clarissa, first of all, just amazing reporting, you and Scotty. I mean, I recognize so many of those places. It's hard to see. Those images are so heartbreaking. I'm curious, when you're in places like New Delhi and they say they're in lockdown for a period of time. I mean, we remember in the United States, lockdown for, essential workers, frontline workers was impossible. I mean, people were out and about. What is lockdown for real, even in places like New Delhi?
Well, I'll say this, Sanjay. The lockdown that you've seen in New York City or that I've seen in London doesn't look like the lockdown here. So in Varanasi, for example, markets can be open every day until about 11 a.m. and the streets are busy during those hours. There was also a wedding in our hotel last night. And on the streets of Delhi, as you say, it's just not realistic. If you can't get oxygen for your loved ones and you have to go and wait in a line for 10 hours sometimes, then you're not in a position to have the luxury of social distancing. This is a fight for survival. And terms like lockdown and social distancing just don't really apply when you're in that kind of situation and you're desperately trying to source things to save the lives of your loved ones, Sanjay. And also, wait, Sanjay, can I just ask you a question while I've got you here? Because one thing that I've been really trying to get a better understanding of is this idea of herd immunity, because we've heard so much about it. And with more than 20 million cases now in this country, at what stage would India maybe expect to achieve herd immunity? Is there some potential in the future for the extraordinary suffering of these people to be mitigated somehow?
Right. Well, Clarissa, I think there's two things here. First of all, I think a lot of people have been wondering for some time why India had not been hit harder earlier on. I mean, very population-dense areas, obviously. Vaccinations, obviously, the rollout very, very slow there in the single-digit percentage. But in terms of herd immunity overall, in a country of nearly 1.4 billion people, you're talking about, a billion people having some form of immunity. A lot of that immunity, as you point out, may come from just natural infection, which is a very tough way to get to that point. But the other part of it has to come probably from the vaccinations, which have just been a small, percentage of the country so far. So we don't know the exact number. Herd immunity is dependent on how contagious the virus is at any given time. As you go into the warmer and more humid months, the contagiousness of the virus may go down, so the threshold for herd immunity may go down. But it seems like this, Clarissa, they're really not anywhere close. I've looked at some of the testing data, which is not adequate, but from what we can tell from the testing data of both virus and antibodies, 20–30% of the country maybe has that sort of protection when you need closer to 70%.
Really, it's an issue of scale. When you're dealing in India, so much of this is trying to even understand how much worse the problem could be there because of how much more populated it is. Sanjay, one quick question in terms of what we are seeing in India, the variant that was first spotted there. The CDC now says it's on that list of variants of interest. What does that mean?
So there's variants of interest and there's variants of concern. Variants of interest basically mean this is something that we think the mutations are worth taking a closer look at, but there's not even real evidence yet around that variant. It's not to say that won't be the case, but there's not evidence yet that it's actually more transmissible or more lethal. This particular variant that they're talking about in India is in some ways a combination of other variants, one of which has existed in South Africa and one has existed in California. But in aggregate, again, they think it's worth taking a closer look at, but they don't quite know how to categorize it or if it's going to be something that's more transmissible. I think the important point there is that this is not what is happening in India. What Clarissa has been reporting is not necessarily due to some mutant variant that has overwhelmed the country. What has happened is exactly what Clarissa has been saying, which is that they let their guard down, and a contagious virus was already out there, and it started to spread more and more amidst all those big religious pilgrimages and celebrations and political rallies and all that sort of stuff. So the basic problem is what really drove this here.